The story begins in the heat of a dusty, war-torn street in Iraq. American troops are advancing cautiously, unaware that from a distant rooftop, a sniper named Chris Kyle and his spotter are watching their every move. Through the scope of his rifle, Chris tracks a man on a balcony using a cell phone, but it's not enough to justify a shot. Suddenly, the situation becomes much more complicated. A woman and a young boy step out of a house. Chris watches as the woman hands something heavy to the child, a Russian RKG-3 anti-tank grenade. As the boy starts running toward the American convoy, Chris faces the most agonizing decision of his life. His spotter urges him to take the shot. But the weight of killing a child hangs heavy in the air. To understand how Chris Kyle became the man in that position, we have to look back at his life many years earlier in Texas. As a young boy, Chris was raised by a strict father who taught him the ways of the world through hunting and simple, hard truths. His father famously told him and his brother that there are three types of people: the sheep, the wolves, and the sheepdogs. The sheep believe evil doesn't exist. The wolves use violence to prey on the sheep, and the sheepdogs are the rare breed blessed with the gift of aggression to protect the flock. Chris was raised to be a sheepdog. We see this early on when he brutally defends his younger brother from a schoolyard bully. Years pass, and Chris and his brother Jeff grow up to be rodeo-riding cowboys. Their lives are simple, filled with dusty arenas and beer, until one day, Chris walks in on his girlfriend cheating on him. The betrayal stings, but it's a news report that truly changes his life. Watching the footage of American embassies being bombed in Africa, something clicks. Chris realizes he isn't meant for the rodeo. He's meant to protect his country. At 30 years old, he walks into a recruiting office and signs up for the most grueling challenge the military has to offer: Navy SEAL training. The training is a nightmare of cold water, mud, and psychological warfare. During a night out at a bar, he meets Taya. She's sharp, unimpressed by military bravado, and tells him she'd never marry a SEAL because they are egotistical and reckless. But Chris wins her over with his sincerity and his quiet, protective nature. They fall in love, get married, and for a brief moment, they are happy. But the honeymoon is cut short by the 9/11 attacks, and Chris is soon shipped off for his first tour of duty. Back in Iraq, we return to that moment on the rooftop. The boy is running toward the soldiers with the grenade. Chris pulls the trigger. The boy falls. The mother then runs out, grabs the grenade, and prepares to throw it. Chris fires again. Both targets are down, and the American troops are safe. But the victory feels hollow. Back at the base, Chris is quiet. While others congratulate him, he struggles with the reality of what he had to do. As the tour continues, Chris's reputation grows. He becomes the legend, the man who watches over the ground troops like a guardian angel. But a new threat emerges, an enemy sniper named Mustafa. Mustafa is a former Olympic medalist who is picking off American soldiers from impossible distances. The war becomes a game of cat and mouse between the two master marksmen. To make matters more stressful, Chris learns that Taya is pregnant back home, and his younger brother Jeff has been deployed to the same dangerous territory. Chris eventually returns home for the birth of his son, but he isn't the same man. At a checkup, the doctor notes his blood pressure is sky high. Chris is physically in Texas, but his mind is still in the streets of Fallujah. He's on edge, distracted by every loud noise, and constantly watching the news. Taya pleads with him to come back to his family, telling him that even when he's sitting right there, he's not really home, but the pull of the war is too strong. Chris feels he has a debt to pay to the men still fighting. He redeploys for a second and third tour. And this time, the mission is even more personal. He joins ground teams to hunt for the Butcher, a brutal insurgent leader known for using a power drill on his victims. During one raid, Chris and his team enter the home of a local family who offers information for a price. But the mission turns into a disaster when Mustafa strikes again, killing the driver of their convoy. Taya, who was on the phone with Chris at the moment of the attack, is forced to listen to the sounds of gunfire and chaos. Believing her husband might be dying thousands of miles away, the hunt for the butcher leads Chris to discover a hidden weapons cache beneath the floorboards of an ordinary home. The subsequent battle is a meat grinder. The team clears a restaurant where the butcher is hiding, only to find a chamber of horrors inside. The butcher eventually tries to escape in a vehicle, and while Chris and his team fight bravely, the terrorist leader slips through their fingers. Between tours, the psychological toll begins to manifest in terrifying ways. Taya gives him an ultimatum: she needs the man she married, not the legend the military created. Chris's fourth and final tour is defined by one goal: Mustafa. The enemy sniper has killed Chris's close friend, Mark, and Chris is consumed by the need for justice. On a rooftop in the middle of a massive battle, Chris spots Mustafa. The distance is over 2,100 yards, more than a mile. It is a shot no one should be able to make. Despite his spotter's warnings and the swarming insurgents below, Chris takes the shot. The bullet travels through the air for several seconds before finding its mark. Mustafa is dead, but the shot reveals their position. A massive sandstorm rolls in, turning the city into a wall of orange dust. Surrounded by hundreds of enemies, Chris makes a final call to Taya. Through the static and the sound of bullets, he tells her, "I'm ready to come home." The team narrowly escapes onto a helicopter just as the dust swallows them whole. Eventually returns to the United States for good. He is a shell of himself until a doctor suggests he spend time with other wounded veterans. By teaching these men how to shoot again and listening to their stories, Chris finally finds the peace that eluded him for a decade. He becomes a devoted father and a loving husband once again. However, the story ends with a tragedy that no one saw coming. In 2013, Chris was asked to help a veteran suffering from severe PTSD. He took the young man to a shooting range, hoping to provide the same healing he had found. Instead, the man turned his weapon on Chris, ending the life of the most lethal sniper in US history. The moral of Chris Kyle's story is a heavy one. The war doesn't end when the deployment is over. He survived 4 tours of the most brutal combat imaginable, only to be taken down at home while trying to do the thing he loved most: helping a brother in need. It is a shocking reminder that the scars of war are often carried by those who seem the strongest. And sometimes, the most dangerous battlefield is the one we return to. Thank you for watching. Creating these recaps takes hours of scripting and editing to give you the best experience. If you enjoyed Chris Kyle's story, please hit the like button and subscribe. Your support is the only thing that keeps this channel alive and allows me to keep making these for you.